Hey everyone, Talk of the Town is up and running in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, USA. I'm Scott Montesano, and this is where the Chippewa Valley comes to talk. A hello to you on this Thursday or whatever day you may be enjoying Talk of the Town. And as always, we've got plenty to get to and lots of other great podcasts at Eau Claire Hometown Media if you're not already checking them out. And on Friday, the debut of one of our newest podcasts, the Off the Ropes with Showtime Pro Wrestling. Showtime Pro Wrestling, one of the local wrestling outfits, and we're going to hear about the world of local pro wrestling with the all-new Off the Ropes podcast presented by Showtime Pro Wrestling. Holistic Nutrition also began its new podcast last week. Check that out. And we've got other shows coming up very, very soon here at echometownradio.com, plus other great programs. I love it when I'm out and about and people say, I love your show. And a lot of times they're referring to this, Talk of the Town, but they may be referring to another show or all that, and it gives me an opportunity to let people know we got so much more as well. You know what we are? When you enjoy just one show, it's like you're just looking at the window of the store. Come inside and see all the other goodies we have to offer you. Of course, give Eau Claire Hometown Media a 5-star rating on your various listening devices. All right, we got a lot to get to, as always. Of course, today is Thursday. A couple of days ago was the statewide election in Wisconsin, and it was pretty much across the board a win for those who lean or are completely on the liberal side. It was very much a liberal wave on Tuesday. That's what it was. Not ultimately surprising when you think about it for a number of reasons. Obviously, the party that is not in control at the federal level, that does bleed down sometimes to state and local races, especially this, because there is so much consternation at what's going on at a federal level. Liberals came out in droves. People on the blue came out in droves, and those that were independent leaning towards blue. Change is what they were leaning towards. National politics playing a role. You saw that in the state Supreme Court race. That in of itself brought people out, and then it kind of went down ballot, if you will. And in addition to that, many conservatives aren't necessarily happy. They're not necessarily motivated. So what you saw on Tuesday wasn't ultimately surprising. Is it a little disappointing in that national ideologies maybe influence the way people think locally? Absolutely, because local races, whoever decides how the hell you're going to pave your roads, doesn't matter whether you're red or blue in that. But you and I live in an adult world. We know what the reality is. So my take from Tuesday is this, because obviously what you saw a lot of was huge numbers coming out and a lot of races that were not mandates. I'm going to point this out. We saw a lot of races that went 60-40. A couple of the big races in the area went 60-40. Those are not mandates. Those are not mandates. I don't want to hear any candidate say, I have a mandate. You don't when you win 60-40. Even 70-30, because if I get 10 people lined up, you know what that means? 7 said yes, 3 said no to you. That's not a mandate. It means that your ideas went out, but you've got to thread a needle a little bit. You've got to thread a needle a little bit. So it's not a mandate. But what I saw on Tuesday, regardless of the race, was a lot of people came out and winners won going away, except for a couple of county board races. A couple of Eau Claire County board races were separated by literally 10 votes. But we're not going to talk about those. You saw people come out in support of candidates, and you saw significant wins. What you also have seen an awful lot of, voting doesn't take place on social media. And there's been a lot of venting on social media, a lot of whining on social media, which, as an aside, numerous studies have come out in the last decade. Numerous ones stating if you vent and bitch online, it tends to make you angrier. That's why I don't anymore. Don't bitch and moan online. It's not going to make you any happier. And I'm going to tell you, society's changing. Fewer people are going to be engaging in your behavior if you're going to bitch and moan online. Fewer people are going to engage. And you're going to start losing some of your friends that are going to unfollow you. That's the trend in the last 6 months, and I think it's only going to exasperate even more. However, this is what I want. My point is, if your side lost on Tuesday, don't whine about it. Don't complain about it. Don't say, oh, Eau Claire's going to hell. Menominee's going to hell. Don't do that. Don't threaten to leave the area. If you really want to leave the area, if the area does not stand for what you want it to stand for, and it really is a fatalistic issue, leave. That's not to say you're not welcome here. But a lot of your neighbors want something else. And right now, they don't agree with you. So don't whine about it. Don't start throwing declarative statements of the area is going to hell and I should leave the area and blah. Nobody cares. You leave, nobody's going to care. If I leave, nobody's going to care. What you should do if your side lost, I've already said to the sides that won, it shouldn't just be performative. It should be true. You've got to work with the other side. And if you work with the other side, and I mean truly work with the other side, and I'll give you the pathway here in a moment, you too could become one of these people that holds on to a spot locally for 10, 15 years. You become somebody in this town. You really do, in the area. You become a celebrity, if you will, in a good way. You become Brendan Pratt in Altoona. What you've got to do, if you won, listen to what I'm going to say to the side that just lost. To the sides that just lost, find ways to partner with the sides that won. Don't just bitch and moan. Don't just pound your fist on the table. And don't just lament the stuff that you know you're not going to agree with that the other side's going to do. Find the common ground and maximize it. Find the things you both agree on and maximize it. And you want to know what? If you make those the focal point, maybe you also sneakily take up a lot of the time for them to do their other pet projects that you didn't want. But work with them. This happens a lot in business. Again, as we're going to get to in a moment, why some of these people not being experienced in for-profit business kind of plays a fact. But you see this a lot in business. All right, I don't agree with this person, this, that, and that person holds the ball. But if I distract them, and not necessarily distract them as a time-killing thing, but we focus on another project that I really want us to get done, and I know they agree with, take the bandwidth away. But also, you make sure that that thing gets done. What you end up having too much is people get pissy and moany that their side didn't win, and all they want to focus on is stopping the other side and complaining about the stuff they do. No. Bad citizen. Bad citizen. Find the stuff that you agree with and there's nothing I agree with. There's nothing I agree with. This is the thing about local politics that isn't the same as the national or the state. You can really just bump into these people and talk to them. You really can. And I'll tell you right now, if you really want to go have a one-on-one with your representative in a city council or your mayor, and they will not have it with you, they avoid you or all that. And I'm not saying you try once and something happens and schedules get crossed and then you go bitching online about it. No. if they really are dodging you for 3 months at a time, or you really have only given them a couple of small windows that you're available and that's when they're not available, no. But you can go talk to these people. Really talk to them. Find that common ground and maximize it. Now, locally, the Altoona School referendum, that passed 1,600 to 1,100. So it passed by 500 votes. Fairly close. A little closer than even I thought it was going to be, but it won fairly handily by 500 votes. You have to figure people with no connection to the schools are an automatic no. So it's going to become harder and harder to get these things passed. And this was one that the Altoona, it was a very small referendum, but it passed. The Menominee mayoral race. The community voted for change in Menominee. Matthew Crow unseats 16-year mayor Randy Knack. It's hard to point at negatives for Randy, but Matt, another nonprofit guy, by the way, he represented change for a number of people. The funny thing is, I've had people say, well, it had to have been about the data center. Well, Matthew Crow has sneakily come out as kind of against the data center, but a lot of his actions proved to be for the data center, whereas Randy Knack was very open in August and saying the community doesn't want the data center, I'm going to be against the data center. So that's the only thing in Menominee that's a little bit weird. A number of people told me they voted for Matthew Crow because he's against the data center, when so's Randy, and Matt has shown signs that he might be for it. So keep an eye in Menominee, because if Matthew Crow could quickly find himself in a lot of hot water if that data center goes through in Menominee. We're not going to argue here the validity of data centers or not, which, Eau Claire, get ready. The seeds are already being planted. Julie Toney with Exo Energy is not by accident doing the car wash circuit. Exo Energy is on board with allowing data centers. They are in support of data centers. And she is doing the car wash, telling people that Exo Energy sees no problem power-wise. Aaron White has already said they're going to start laying the groundwork as far as PR goes for it. But regardless, in Menominee, they don't want the data center. They do not want it. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. As I said on this program, it became rather clear in the last few weeks that Matthew Crow is going to really get. I thought it would be a closer race, but I wasn't surprised that Matthew Crow won. Randy's been there for a very long time. It's hard to point at negatives. It really is with Randy. Very similar to Brendan Pratt in Altoona. It's hard to find negatives that he's had, but he got a challenge from somebody who found a vein of those that were on his side, and there you go. Now that brings us to the Eau Claire City Council presidency race. Menominee voted for change. Eau Claire voted for status quo, which is, again, a little odd when you consider all of the budgetary issues that Eau Claire is facing. Is it frustrating for me to see some of my neighbors fall down the path that they did? Absolutely. It is. It's frustrating. Makes me want to beat my head against the wall. That I think people voted, I'll say it flat, idiotically. You were idiots. Too many of you were idiots because you voted for something you thought, but you didn't vote for reality. All right? Jeremy Greger having all of those endorsements from liberal heavy hitters in the area played a big factor. And I think a number of people went to the ballot on Tuesday. They were going to vote for the liberal side, pissed off at a number of things that have gone on nationally, and they were going to vote for the liberals. And Jeremy Greger very much had all the endorsement of liberals. So Jeremy Gregor is the president, and you get, again, more of the same in the city council. Chance for there to be some change, which we are going to need. But you get Jeremy Gregor over Scott Rogers. Now, Jeremy Gregor had all this national money coming in. What did I just say, though, about not bitching and moaning about what happened? Scott Rogers and his team doesn't have a kick coming. They don't have a kick coming. It stinks the national monies came in. It's sickening. The national monies came in for a race that should not have any. Again, whether you're red or blue, the roads had to get paved. And Jeremy Gregor sounded quite slimy in his WEAU interview on Monday. He might have been better off not to talk. He's not a great public speaker, Jeremy. They asked him point blank, what are your thoughts on it? And Jeremy went, well, it's kind of odd that they're sending their money in. And, they followed it by the books. And it's kind of odd, though. Jeremy, just shut up. And frankly, from Scott Rogers' perspective, again, you don't have a kick coming. Because I don't think ultimately that determined the race. I think it's a bad look. But I don't think that determined the race. Jeremy, Scott was invisible. Scott was invisible. He ran a poor campaign. No billboard. I said it before. I know what billboards in this area cost. You'd be surprised. You could buy a billboard for your garage sale and make that money. You could buy a billboard on Claremont Ave and make money back on your garage sale. They are not that expensive billboards. One billboard, one, would have been good. And if you're saying he did have a billboard, well, where was it? And then take a picture of it, and I will eat crow on that. No billboards. Never did I get an email with Eau Claire Hometown Media saying, "Hey, can I be on any one of the shows?" If you don't have monies, you find other ways to get your name out there. Scott Rogers, I think, had a lot of momentum. A lot of momentum. Up until maybe a month ago. And then it stalled the last month in comparison to Jeremy getting all of this momentum. And it wasn't just all of the stuff they were sending out. They just had momentum. He was going out and talking to businesses. A lot of people I know, he was out there running into people at coffee shops and all this, and I just wasn't getting the same boots on the ground feel from Scott Rogers' group. Much of Scott's support came from people who couldn't or wouldn't vote. He had a lot of support in the local business community, but a lot of the people in the business community don't live in Eau Claire, couldn't vote in Eau Claire. So Jeremy Gregor takes over as the city council president. Do I think the city of Eau Claire is about to go to hell in a handbasket? No, I do not think it's going to go to that. I just think it was a missed opportunity to maybe make some changes, and perhaps Jeremy will. As he rides around the area in his Apple Core burning bicycle or whatever his environmental strength is, whatever his environmental cause is. Remember something about him riding on a bicycle that was like powered by some alternative energy or something? So let him do that. Let's see how it goes. What did I just say about maximizing? For those that wanted Scott Rogers like me, find the things with Jeremy Gregor that you can maximize. What can be maximized? Where is that common ground? And maximize it. And for Jeremy, find where you can reach across the aisle, if you will. All right. So that's the local elections are in the rearview mirror. There will be one other decision coming up very shortly for the Eau Claire City Council, and we will get to that in just a moment. By the way, dressed up nice today on the video. I've got one more Chippewa Steel hockey game tonight. Yes, the Steel are still playing up in Chippewa Falls, and they've got one more game this season tonight on Thursday. And we'll talk more about the Steel on our next Sports Watch on Monday. But if you're looking for something to do on Thursday, Steel hockey on Thursday night. Over in Altoona, wanted to point this out quickly. So Altoona opened up last year that long anticipated container park that's been a pet project for the city of Altoona. And kind of their next big thing is they try to build up their city center, and they finally opened it last year. And, of course, there's been naysayers and people that are being negative and all of that, but it's opened up, and it's been greeted with mostly warm the winter, the spring and summer will be its big season. And people have, you've got different restaurants in there, and I've heard good and bad with the offerings that are in there, some different types of offerings. It's kind of operated as an incubator space for some eateries, and these are some eateries that they're not your standard burger and pizza, which can sometimes throw people off for that. But news coming down this week that the city of Altoona is budgeting now for necessary repairs to some of these containers. There are issues with the roof and there are issues with the floor with a number of the containers and rather expensive fixes. This is not a good look. Now, it's not uncommon for any type of building, any type of new building, or in this case, a container park, though there's questions with actual containers, and we'll get to that in a moment. But it's not uncommon, even if you build the fanciest of buildings, like the Sonnentag, that once you kind of stress test it with actual activity, that then you find little tweaks that have to occur. Remember, the Sonnentag this year had a leak in its roof. So it's not uncommon. Doesn't mean the whole thing is going to hell in a handbasket, since that's become my big phrase of the day. But it's not a good look. I think that's reality. It's not a good look for the Yard at Altoona or for the city council. Doesn't mean that it's a failure. Doesn't mean that this thing was a boondoggle. Doesn't mean this was a waste of money. Absolutely not. But eyes will be on it now, clearly. As an aside, the city of Altoona no longer has its own podcast with us, so they can't really explain out their side of it. But knowing them, I'm pretty sure they'd say, hey, we were kind of expecting there to be some potential issues in the first couple of years, and there you go. Now, if this becomes a yearly thing, if next year and the year after, and there's all of these little tweaks and all this and that, and you're starting to find that a lot more money's going into that, and it's starting to become a bit of a money pit, then questions will really be validated. Right now, though, it's just something to warrant watching. Now, people have brought up a good point. What about the contractors to these like, what's the warranty and all of that? What? It's only, the place is barely old enough. How the hell does stuff already have to be fixed? And I'm sure they've looked at warranties and contractors and that kind of thing. All right, brings us to the last thing we'll get to today, and we're touching on this one more time, and then they'll make the decision later this month. But remember, on Tuesday we talked about the open seat with the Eau Claire City Council, Emily Anderson's vacated seat, and there are 3 people that have put their names out there. Brian Trowbridge, former police officer in the area who has twice run for city council and both times lost. Joyce Orth, who is a longtime communications director with a couple of spots, most recently with Fierce Freedom, a nonprofit, and Shelley Yankee, who is the head of the Eau Claire Humane Association. Brian Trowbridge, as we said on Tuesday. Now I got some feedback on all 3 candidates on Tuesday. Nobody emailing me about their elections, but people wanted to email me about these candidates. And with Brian Trowbridge, and I'm kind of answering to the people that emailed me universally here. With Brian Trowbridge, I'm out. As I said, with all three of them, you're kind of sitting there. I keep looking around the corner. Is there a fourth option? Is there a fourth option? Because as I said, why I'm kind of out on all three of them, and none of it is really mean. It's each of them's got a fatal mistake that I wish there was another option. With Brian Trowbridge, I am all for him trying to run again, and at least once, if not both times, I think I supported him running. But he's been rejected by the voters twice. How could you as a city council member justify saying, yes, let's put him in? That's a big middle finger to the community. He might be the best. He might be the best of the three, but he's been twice. He hasn't won the election. And people are already irritated that they don't get the pick because Emily Anderson announced so late. Gets us to Joyce Orth. And I had people really upset with what I said about Joyce. How dare you people questioning, how dare I could not automatically say she's the best candidate? I would not know Joyce if she walked in behind me right now with a name tag on, yelled her name as Joyce. I'd turn around and still not know who she is. That's not to be mean. We just have not crossed paths. And the sad thing is, I bet we have. With all the interviews with guests and whatnot across, and I do this all the time, and I apologize to people that maybe I did not remember them. But she's definitely not been a regular on shows. But I got people up in arms. She's a great person. She'd be a great leader. But as I said on Tuesday, the nonprofit world, the fact she's coming from the nonprofit world is hard for me to overcome that. We've got too many people already that have a nonprofit background, and she's never run anything then. Which then brings us to the last option, which is Shelley. And she herself, whereas Joyce had a lot of surrogates reach out, Joyce herself reached out to us. And I do give her credit for it. She put her neck out there on the line and wrote directly to Uncle Scotty. She reached out herself and came with receipts. Now she comes from the nonprofit world with the dogs and the cats and the rabbits and what have you. But she also has run that nonprofit, so she does have running executive leadership experience. She mentions she's run her nonprofit like a business. She's had to raise funds, manage staff, all of that. She came with receipts. And out of the three, as I kind of said on Tuesday, she probably would be the best choice of the three. But let me explain why it's still not a good choice. And my issue with having too many nonprofit mentalities. And this is the thing, as she was explaining through all the stuff she's done, I sat there and going, yes, it's sort of playing into exactly what I said because she can't cross that line. There are lots of similarities, but some stark contrasts between nonprofits and for-profits. And it's become even more glaring to me as I've spoken with people that are in nonprofits socially. And we've agreed. There are slight psychological twists that make huge differences in how I have sold $50,000 packages in minor league sports and in broadcasting. A $75,000 naming rights deal I have sold. Big time numbers. I could probably not raise money for a nonprofit. And conversely, the same people, I know one in particular, she deals with big time dollars. She goes, I probably could not sell advertising. It's why it's not easy to crisscross the platforms. You see a number of successful business people, even locally, go to a nonprofit, quickly flame out, and vice versa. It takes a particular set of skills. Nonprofits rely on volunteers to augment paid staff. And the staff is usually all in on the cause as well. You work for a nonprofit, you are all in on that cause. The money's not worth it for you not to be. With for-profits, if you set up a good culture, that can mean everyone's pulling the rope in the same direction, but there is always an element of it's just a job. You never have 100% buy-in. This means how you communicate, what you can demand, and what your expectations of your staff vary. The other is raising funds and how you do get the money to operate, how you're able to procure the money to operate. This is a big one. With nonprofits, it's a lot of grants. And grants aren't an evil word. That's what you do. You go and you get the grants, which aren't sustainable, but sometimes are treated like them. But you go and you hunt and you work your ass off for those grants. The gifts, the gifts, literally from the grants and the people that are writing gifts and donations. And then maybe you have a fundraiser you put together. But boy, the amount of complaining I hear from nonprofits when they've got to put together a fundraiser. I wish nonprofits would stop the complaining about that, though. Complaining about the banquet they've got to do, the rubber chicken banquet. I know it's a lot of work. If you're not making a lot of money off of it, then don't do it. All right? But what I've learned, and again, over some drinks with people, they say the quiet part out loud. A couple of times they've said, I wish people could just write me $20,000 as opposed to me having to put on the dog and pony show. And that's exactly what brings us to this. With for-profits, with nonprofits, you are trying to tell people, come in, give us the money. Here's why we need it. With for-profits, it's much more mining for that money. You have to go and show a tangible return to a customer or a business. You have to show where they'll make more than the money they give you. In nonprofits, it's about showing you deserve this money that they need to give you. I deserve your money. It's not easy. In some cases, people are flying all over the country to go meet that couple that's from Eau Claire that's got deep pockets. And they're all set to write you that big check, but they need you to come to their door in Naples, Florida. So it's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's different. And you have to go there and you have to lick their butthole. In for-profit, you have to spend time mining for that money. You have to show people, all right, here's how you're going to make the money back. I can show you how directly you're going to make the money back. Not in feel or cause or in good notions or people will remember you or all that. Here's how you will make your money back. Or here's how you are going to directly benefit from this product that I'm going to sell you. You have to show they'll make more than the money they give you. In nonprofits, it's about showing you deserve the money. In for-profits, it's about making money for that partner. In nonprofits, you are beholden to your cause. They're giving you money, and then you are beholden to that cause. In for-profits, you are beholden to the person that gave you the money. By the way, it is a joke in Eau Claire that many businesses sometimes don't understand gifts and what have you, and that's a running joke. You know, the business leaders in Eau Claire, myself included, if you make a donation to a place, you don't get advertising for it. If you want advertising, you want to put your name on something and get advertising, I'll give you Craig Toyson's number with the Eau Claire Express, $10,000 he'll put your name out on the outfield, like a lot of other great businesses have done. All right, if you want your name out somewhere. When you donate to a nonprofit, you've donated. It's called a donation. But okay, so how does this all translate to the Eau Claire City government? Right now, as I said, it's not about cutting costs with the Eau Claire City government and the budget. It's not just about cutting costs. That's easy. Any new person can come into a business or whatever and go, slashing costs, slashing expenditures. That's easy. It's about raising revenue. We have to raise revenue in the city of Eau Claire. We've got to get creative with raising revenue. Frankly, things like paid parking can be justified, but the way it was rammed through was kind of a nonprofit mentality that this is what we need, here you go. There wasn't enough done to sell it as a benefit in the long run to us. Same goes for eschewing the selling of advertising in park spaces and at hobs, and instead trying to place this at the feet of other nonprofit groups and in turn raising their rates. I'm just going to raise their rates. I'm going to get the money, but I'll give them an opportunity to make their money back. No. Let's get creative ourselves. And again, take Hobbs, for instance. Instead of the city selling the advertising, if you send the user groups out to do it, you've got 3 or 4 user groups that are going to cannibalize each other. And we've already gone through what's the motivation to sell and all of that. Be interesting. So again, nonprofit lifers aren't bad. To Joyce and Shelley, they could be brilliant. And in the case of Shelley, she came with receipts as to what she's done. And frankly, if we had a bit more of a mix in the city council, I'm gung-ho. I'm gung-ho. I'm not saying you don't want nonprofit ideas in the city council. I'm just saying we need more of a balance right now. Nonprofit lifers aren't bad. They're not dumb. They're not aloof. Just like for-profit aren't greedy SOBs. But we need to acknowledge the differences, and I don't think we have enough varying perspectives on the city council. We need varying perspectives, just like we've got some people that are a little older. We've got a couple people that are a little younger on the council. I think that is good. You want a good mix. It's kind of why my hot take has always been, because this is not a large geographical area, I wish it was across the board voting for city council members. Not somebody's in charge of this 2 blocks and that person's in charge of this 2 blocks and this person's in charge of these 3 houses. The city's not big enough to be having wards. Across the board, because what is good for Princeton Valley on the north side of town is likely good for Scott Montesano on the south side. It just is. We all benefit. All right, we've gone long today. Tuesday is going to be a recorded show. See what we talk about on Tuesday. Have a great weekend. On behalf of everyone who made this podcast possible, I'm Scott Montesano saying there's a great, big, beautiful tomorrow shining at the end of every day. Make sure to take advantage of it. And until next time, so long.